I joked offhandedly that, to meet Robert De Niro, I'm going to have to dress up as a bellboy and deliver his bags to his room. Right. So I had a guy named Bertrand Maison. I show up for press the next morning at 7 a.m. and he leans over to me and he says, I have the bellboy's outfit for you to meet Monsieur De Niro. And I went, what? Excuse me? He goes, the bellboy's outfit that you want to meet Monsieur De Niro, I have it. And I'm, are you kidding me?
Hey everyone, I'm Denise Satova, your host of Beyond the Bar podcast. So you know that this show is about unhurried conversations with the people who build something. They're real stories, and I would say sort of told slow. We go past the headlines, we go past the resumes, the fame, titles. So I'm not interested in the parts, well, some of the parts of my guests who I'm about to introduce that you can really Google. And I think, gosh, 4 decades, although he doesn't look it, 4 decades in, refusing every box. And these days, more really fired up about what's next than anything behind him. I really want the man underneath all of this. And here's the part, that kind of made me grin, and we're going to talk about that. He's working on so many different things, but I think one of his projects has to do with a legal thriller. So he's quite literally taking us beyond the bar. Lou Diamond Phillips, welcome to the show.
Denise, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, very exciting stuff. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you have so much energy. We literally just met, I don't know, a couple of minutes ago, virtually right here. And I said, you seem like a very busy man. Do you do any traveling? And you just sort of rattle off so many things that you have going on. Where's this energy coming from?
Uh, is it fear? I don't know. I joke
FOMO.
and
No.
compliments about, still looking good, but I'm telling you, I'm running twice as fast to stay in the same place. But fortunately, I think to stay ahead, or at least current, in today's, marketplace and in today's landscape. One of the things that is important to me is the FaceTime. I think through social media and everything else, we've lost so much FaceTime. And yet I have been afforded a wonderful opportunity to be present for a number of things. First of all, I do a lot of fan conventions. I just got back from Tennessee. It's a wonderful way to engage with fans who have had memories with their families, with me, for decades now. It goes back to La Bamba, which is, coming up on 40 years. And, I always get people going, I watched that with my mom. I watched that with my grandmother. I mean, even something like Longmire, throughout my career, I've been fortunate to have touchstones for people's relatives, something that they shared together. And that means a lot to me. And then currently I have a film coming out in July called Gangland on VOD, but also in a few theaters. And it's doing the festival circuit. So I'm getting out there and introducing it personally, as if it's this artisanal, handcrafted, beer that I'm introducing to people, and showing them how much I care about, the product that I make. And, and then lastly, you and I were speaking, I'm the current governor of the actors branch, one of three, and a vice president. I'm currently the chairperson of the Equity and Inclusion Committee for the Academy. So, I'm back and forth between New York and LA a lot on Academy business. But once again, I just feel like, in a time when, yes, Zoom allows you to increase your reach, the real work, is done, on the street, in person, face to face.
You are literally living it. And so there's more to it than just staying relevant. You really sounds like you're enjoying the interaction and tirelessly. And that's important to you. Almost like you want to leave almost like a legacy.
Well, it's interesting. I love the setup of your show in that it's trying to get beyond the headlines, behind the persona. Um, so many people, and especially in Hollywood, they've seen a couple of your films. They go, "Yeah, oh, I know Lou. I know who he is." No, they don't. Not really. They tend to minimize and diminish who you are as a person, and in respect to that, your ability. They don't know your range. You can't know an actor's range from one or two films. And especially in my case, because I consider myself a character actor. The going from something like Gangland, which is a thriller and a procedural drama, to something like The Chair Company, which I'm in on HBO, which is a just bonkers comedic thing. Many people wouldn't think that I could do both, and I think that's one of the things that's kept me employed for 40 years now, is that I'm able to fit in different places.
Yeah, and there's so many dimensions to you. I know I said that I was going to go past sort of the headlines, but there's one thing that sort of stuck is your beginning. And I usually start the show, what's your story? But I want to ask you about this when we're talking about back in the day. I guess the young broke version of you. You're still young, but you wanted to meet Robert De Niro so much,
Yeah,
right? Is that just tell me the story. I need to hear it from you.
it's lengthy.
Give me your version of it. I
I'll,
really want to hear
I'll
that, your version.
version of it. So the film La Bamba premieres. Its European premiere is at a wonderful film festival called the Deauville Film Festival in the north of France. I ended up, and I'm 25 years old at this point in time, and I ended up at a table with Robert Townsend, who became famous for making Hollywood Shuffle with his credit cards. And there is a place setting for Robert De Niro at our table. Now we are at a gala dinner celebrating Betty Davis, so
Mm.
automatically I am just immersed in how big a deal all of this is. And so, but Townsend and I were, young up and coming guys, kind of, outsiders, into the Hollywood system. And I joked offhandedly that, to meet Robert De Niro, I'm going to have to dress up as a bellboy and deliver his bags to his room. Right. So I had a guy named Bertrand Maison, who is a Frenchman, and he and I hit it off because he thinks that Inspector Clouseau is very funny, and so we were did your dog bite? Do you have a license for your minky? So we're doing this the entire time I'm there. I show up for press the next morning at 7 a.m. And he leans over to me and he says, "I have the bellboy's outfit for you to meet Monsieur De Niro." And I went, "What? Excuse me?" Because the bellboy's outfit that you want to meet Monsieur De Niro, I have it. And are you kidding me? And we find out that De Niro missed the dinner the previous night. He's flying in that afternoon. My guy, his company has this whole itinerary, and he knows which hotel he's going to be in. I'm going to be in the hotel at that same time, and so fine. I hatched this plot to put on the bellboy's outfit and deliver a bottle of champagne to his room with a note from me saying, what a big fan I am. And coincidentally, La Bamba is screening right after The Untouchables in the same movie theater. And I want to invite him to stay afterwards and see the movie if he hasn't seen it. So 25, man.
Oh,
I
oh my
when I
God.
think about it today, I go, wow, you had some chutzpah, kid. So sure enough, I deliver the bottle of champagne. There's another guy who I've never met. He quizzes me at the door, reads my note, yells back over
Yes.
his shoulder, "Bobby, you know a Lou Diamond Phillips?" You know, I hear the voice from inside the room. I don't know. I don't. Maybe he's a producer. So fine, they let me in with my bottle of Perrier Jouet, which is a lovely bottle of champagne, by the way. Meanwhile, there's like a dozen bottles of Dom already sent to his room from other people.
Oops.
Yeah, oops. So and De Niro's not even in the room. So I set the bottle of champagne down on the thing. I have no other reason to stay there. I'm okay. I have to leave. And by the way, Bertrand taught me a little bienvenue d'autre Deauville, Monsieur De Niro. That's the one line of French that I now know. Okay, but now I'm out. I'm out of French other than oui. So as I'm about to leave, De Niro walks into the room and uh he's going, "What's going on? What are we doing? What's happening?" And the guy hands him the note. He reads it. He goes, "Oh, he's a fan." And so I'm just sort of there and, like trembling because I'm, within 6 feet of him. And yeah, then, hey, let's have some champagne. And he motions to me, not thinking that I can speak English. He goes, "We're gonna have some champagne. Could you open up one of the bottles, please? If you could open up, we're gonna have some champagne." And so I go to reach for my bottle, and he goes, "No, no, no, one of these." Right? So here's the kicker. Then he said, I'm 25 years old. I've never opened up a bottle of champagne in
Oh
my life.
no.
I had to do it. Okay. So I'm like, I'm shoveling it in the
Oh,
champagne
yeah.
bucket because I've seen that in movies. And as I'm looking at it, the other guy says, "Bobby, this guy's not from this hotel because my bellboy's outfit is from the Hotel du Cap, and I'm at the Hotel Canard or something. I can't remember but it's the nicer hotel." So now all of a sudden I'm busted, and De Niro looks at my little bellboy's cap, and he goes, "You're right. This guy's not from this hotel." Well, I've seen The Untouchables. I think he's going to take a baseball bat to me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm about to spill the beans when the other guy, and again, they don't think I can speak English. The other guy says, Bobby, this guy, he walked 4 blocks to deliver the champagne. You got to make him open up another bottle of champagne. That doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, Bobby." And he's like, "You're right. Doesn't look good." He said, "Thank you. It's okay. Okay. Thank you very much." Okay. So long story short, I leave. I go get dressed in my suit. My premiere's at 9. I go down to have a bite to eat at my hotel now at the Hotel du Cap. And
Yeah.
I walk in and I walk right by a table that has De Niro, Art Linson, the producer, Brian De Palma, and the guy from The Room. And my table's right next to theirs. And I think, oh my gosh, so busted. They're going to see me, realize I'm that same guy. They're going to think something's going on. So I write another note, send him over and go, "I was the guy that delivered the champagne. I just wanted to meet you." Long story short, De Niro thought it was hilarious, called me over to actually introduce himself personally. And the other guy, his name is Mayor Tepper, and we became very good friends. And it ultimately led to me being a co-owner of the Tribeca Grill in Manhattan, which sadly just closed because of the pandemic. But yeah, I was one of the original partners for 35 years.
Wow. What a story. And that's because you had curiosity instead of balls.
Uh, there you
There
go.
you go. No, this is really great. Is it true that for so many years, people trying to put you in a box, so to speak?
Always, always. I mean, and it's interesting. I'm a Navy brat, so I grew up on Navy bases
Ah,
around the world. The Philippines, and then like
yeah.
half the states. I sort of never dealt with anybody trying to categorize me, when I was younger because, there were so many mixed race kids on the base.
Yeah.
I was not unlike anybody else. It wasn't literally until I got to college in Dallas, the University of Texas at Arlington,
Hmm.
where all of a sudden, I was othered to a certain extent. Where it's like, well, what are you? What's your background? I love the one that, it's like, what's your nationality? And I go, well, I'm an American. And that just confuses the hell out of people. It's like, no,
Yeah.
no. It's like, I know what you meant. It's okay. You know, um, uh, and then in Hollywood, it got even worse because they try to put you in a box. So the funny thing is though, because I am so ambiguously brown, at least in the '80s, they weren't able to hyphenate me as much. You know, and
Ah,
yeah, and when I teach acting now, it's like I always tell people, don't become the best African American actor you can be, or the best Asian American actor. Be the best actor with a capital A.
yeah.
force them to use your talent as the first criteria in getting a job. There's certain roles that not everybody can play. I shouldn't be playing John F. Kennedy. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
should be playing Nelson Mandela. But there are so many roles in film and television, and this, especially on stage, where your ability to play the role, to me, should be the first requirement. So early on, even in my Hollywood career, I had to fall back on what I had become in college, and that was a utility player, a character actor, a journeyman actor.
Mm.
There are times when I would do leads, or I would do supporting roles, comedy, Shakespeare, Mamet, all of the above, improv. There were times when I ran the spotlight. I very, very often painted the backdrops. So I learned to respect, for the entire process, and for everything it takes to put on these shows. And so when I got to Hollywood, I got very, very lucky, to be quite honest, because my first three films were La Bamba, Stand and Deliver, and Young Guns. The three characters are nothing like each other. The three films are nothing like each other. And so early on in my career, I was able to establish that, fortunately, I was an actor with a little bit of range.
Wow, and you're so open about it, and just normalizing it, and yeah, it's like there's this human need, talking about human curiosity, to just categorize things, to put things in a box. It needs to make sense. It has nothing to do with you, right? It's about the set of the perceptions, and as we grow up, it's what we pick up along the way. It's like, I must know. Yeah, that's
It simplifies things for people, and
yeah.
it makes it easier for them when the truth is often much more complicated and much more complex than that. People want to be able to go, oh, that's what that person does. And many times it's like, great, give me the best plumber. I want the best sushi chef.
Yeah.
Give me the pit master. When I go for barbecue. In the arts, it doesn't really work that way, and yet they try to apply the same system of categorization, and especially for somebody like me, who sort of defies that categorization. It's been important for me, and I realized it early on, to carry that torch and to represent for other people. And as we had spoken before, I'm currently the chairperson of the Equity and Inclusion Committee, and so you're talking about how transparent I am about my journey. I need to, because that is going to hopefully inspire and enable many generations that have come after me now, to walk their own path and to find their own individuality. Because first of all, that's how you become a star. You don't become a star by being the next Denzel. You don't become a star by being the next Bruce Lee. You become a star by being yourself, and find
Yes.
those things about you that are appealing to an audience. And the more authentic, the more organic, the more real it is, the more iconoclastic you become.
You're a dad, right?
I am a dad. I'm a girl dad. So yeah, very in touch with my feminine side.
If your girls were to roast you, what would they say about you?
It would start off with bad dad jokes. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm a lover of puns going way back. I mean, even when I write, I fall into that trap many times. But Shakespeare loved his puns, so I feel like I'm in good company. So I love a really bad dad joke. Absolutely. And I also tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve. I think that is part and parcel of being an actor, and trying to have those uh, emotions and at hand to be able to portray them, but also a deep, deep desire to be normal, and to celebrate that normalness. I mean, I wasn't born into the industry. My dad was in the Navy. My mom was a homemaker, and middle class kid. Many times, growing up, people said, well, no, you don't pursue that. That's out of reach.
Mm.
But when it did happen for me, it was very important that it not change what I wanted out of life. I was certainly getting, what I wanted out of my art and my craft and my career. But, I wanted certain things for me, as a human being. I love to cook. I take out my own garbage. I do my own shopping. I have animals. I love to garden. All of these things, I didn't want to be affected by painting myself into a corner, like unfortunately so many people do, where they don't feel like they can have a normal life.
Yeah, it's your choice.
It is. And you do that by I think taking the air out of it early on. I look back now, and I know that, in my, late 20s, early 30s, I was a lot more self-conscious.
Mhm.
I was worried about getting stared at in restaurants. I was worried about, you know, getting stopped and creating, a scene, as it were. And now, I couldn't even imagine, eating dinner by myself, but now I actually kind of love it. Whenever I'm on location and I'm studying my work for the next day or whatever, I find a nice little restaurant. I sit in the corner. I bring my script. I do my work. You know, and it's all good because now I'm much more comfortable in my skin. I think, in my 20s and early 30s, I thought, okay, well, they made me a movie star. I need to act like a movie star. And it's like, no, that doesn't really work. And I discovered that, if I engaged people who were staring like, hi, how are you? I'm Lou. It took the tension out of the moment, and everybody could have their moment. They could say hello, and then everybody could move on. You know, it's funny because it's like, the more you try to avoid these things, the more they'll chase after you. If the TMZ guy comes up to me, I don't try to avoid him. I go, hey, what's going on? And then I answer a couple of questions, and life goes on. You know, it's in the avoidance of it where they're chasing you and trying to steal things from you. And as far as like photos and images and whatnot, they can't steal from you if you share it willingly.
That is a great point. You're right. I'm an open book. I realized that later on in my career as well, as being completely open and transparent. You either like it or you don't. I don't care. As long as you were treating people with respect. The rest, if you take stuff personally, again, none of my business.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's something so, extremely liberating. Of course, that came to me in my late 40s. I'm now in my early 50s, and damn, it feels good.
It does.
Just yeah, right?
Not having to look over your shoulder, not being paranoid, just kind of
Yeah.
rolling with it as it comes. It's a much easier way to live. But I mean, but then again, I've got a manageable amount of fame, and I'm very comfortable with that. I can't quite imagine what it's like for Taylor Swift or Tom Cruise or people like that. I mean, you know that's a heavy burden to bear.
See, now I don't know if you're joking or if you're
No, I'm not. I'm serious. It's like
yeah.
they I can't quite imagine. Although I hear she does it, but can you imagine her in the produce section? Do you think these melons look ripe to you?
Yeah, no, probably not. Yeah, it's interesting because we talked about it before we got going. I shared with you how I started, but it's like underneath all that, I mean, we're just, human beings, and I think with, fears and desires, and need just like anybody else, but we have this wrapper around us. And it's I'm curious too, because you've had quite the journey. Is what is one thing that you really, I mean, really, really, really had to grow through personally?
Um, Still growing through it. I mean, our industry is changing. The social media has had a huge impact. Reality TV prior to that, the landscape of fame is much different than it is when I first started. It used to be that celebrity meant you celebrated, somebody for something. They were very, very good at something, be it acting or writing or athleticism. They were celebrities because we celebrated them. Now, fame might as well be infamy. It doesn't matter. People got famous on the internet for doing really ridiculous things, not always good things, and then parlaying that into money. And the industry started looking at fame as a be all and end all. It's like, okay, so he's got so many followers, or so many is, somebody is high on whatever meter
Yeah.
that gauging things by, but it doesn't equate with talent. But they're getting shots. They're getting the ability to be on shows or create shows, or so it's a different landscape, and it's a little different than when I started. And the industry in general has its ups and downs. I mean, even Jack Nicholson said it, the career's like a roller coaster. You have your highs, you have your lows, and it's
Yeah.
weathering all of those. And, people say, well, how do you have a 40-year career? It's like, you can't put all your eggs in the basket of fame or notoriety or hotness, because
Yeah.
there's somebody who's coming, the flavor of the month is coming right after you, the it girl or boy of the moment, that moment doesn't last. And so it's for me, it's always, been keeping an eye on the work, on the craft. I'd
Mm.
still be doing this for free, you know, in community theater in Texas, because I love it so much. The fact that I've been able to make a career out of it and a life, and take care of my family, that's a huge blessing. And as they often say, gratitude is the attitude. So
Yes.
it's very much about going. I know there are times that are going to be slower. I know there are times when everything's clicking and everything's hitting, and it's navigating that and putting it all into perspective. Just because you're not getting the kind of roles you want doesn't mean you're useless, and just because you've had a recent hit doesn't make you the next best thing since sliced bread. It's always right there in the middle of just moving forward and keeping your ear to the ground, hitting the bricks, as it were.
If you couldn't, this is one of my favorite questions, is if you couldn't do the craft that you're currently doing, you're more than outside of acting and directing and writing. We didn't even talk about that. And I know there's so many more layers. What would you do that is completely different than, than the creative part of work that you're doing right now?
I mean, more than likely, I'd still be involved in one way or the other. We talked about the writing. I mean, I actually wanted to be a writer before I wanted to be an actor.
Really?
Actually, funny, my dad asked me, my Navy dad, he talks like this. He's a Southern guy. He says, son, what do you want to do for a living? And I think around age 12, I said, I want to be a writer. He goes, you might want to do something where you can make a little more money. So back a year later, I said, I want to be an actor. And he said, son, that's not exactly what I was thinking of, but yet he's been incredibly supportive,
Really?
throughout my career. He came up and saw the North American premiere of Gangland, in
Wow.
Dallas, International Film Festival recently, so he's always been supportive. But I would be a writer. I mean, I finally, after writing plays and screenplays for a number of years, I got back to my narrative writing. And I have two novels out there that I wrote. My wife Yvonne does the illustrations. They're amazing. They're beautiful. We wrote a sequel because the first one did so well. They're called The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira and The Tinderbox Underground Movement. The first one is sort of a sci-fantasy extrapolation of a Hans Christian Andersen short story, and I stole it from Yvonne. She's an amazing illustrator. In the 90s, she was going to do a graphic novel version of it because it's one of HCA's more obscure fairy tales. And I saw this, and because she was doing it in manga, in the Japanese style, it reminded me of Star Wars. I said, this should be a movie. And so she said, well, go ahead, fine, write it. And so I wrote the movie, realized that it was so expensive, nobody was going to give me that much money. And so my manager said, well, why don't you write the book? That way, because it is expensive, but if somebody wants, to create that world, then you have at least, painted a full picture for everybody. And it did so well. It topped the Amazon chart a number of times. And then Yvonne came up with the idea for the sequel. So she's credited with story on the second one, but also did all the illustrations for it. And I'm literally 2 chapters from finishing my third novel, which is different from the first two, but will also be illustrated by Yvonne. And this one's much more of a sort of nature-based eco kind of story. And it's one that I wrote in college. I actually wrote the original novel in college. Uh, I'm a much better writer now. I will literally read like a page and go, "Wow, man, what were you thinking?" you know. And so I've updated it. I've got much more of a sense of humor about it, and I think the writing is, you know how it is in your 20s. I think I was the pedantic, young man with something to prove, and
Mm.
really sort of, philosophical and deep and all of that stuff. And it's like I've lightened up. For it.
Wow.
But
How do
you
you?
know what? Or I'd cook. I'd be a chef. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
obviously I could teach, but one of my other passions is cooking, and I've won cooking competitions on the Food Network, so it's something that I'm passionate about, and I love doing. I cook probably 6 nights a week. Yeah, it's one of the things that keeps me grounded.
What do you love to cook?
Everything, which is
Everything.
I won competitions because I don't have just one cuisine, you know. I mean, being from Texas, I grill a lot. As a matter of fact, I have plans to grill tonight. Uh, but Italian, Mexican, Asian. There's a bunch of stuff. Good old fashioned Americana. There are a number of things that I do. There are a few things I'd love to brush up on, or learn, because I've got a lot of chef friends and big foodie, so love restaurants and all that good stuff. But it's truly a passion, and it's I watch the cooking shows, man. It's an art. These people,
Yes.
artists, man. They're amazing.
No, they really are. I grew up in Czech Republic in Prague,
Oh,
and be, beautiful, beautiful was
I
just actually
heard nothing
was
but
back.
beautiful about it.
Yeah. And my mom still lives there. So, I mean, she's a great cook, and she taught me and my sister, actually. We're like 7, 8 years old. And so we were reminiscing. And then we also have this recipe book for, to bake various things. And that was passed on from her mom to her, now to us. And it was really nice. It's like food brings people together. And so when I came to the US, I was surprised how many people did not know how to cook or did not like to cook. But there's something, putting stuff together, even not measuring it, just sort of eyeballing it, right? Just
Yeah,
having fun with it, not being
out.
afraid of it.
Yeah, that's you're a magician with that. But I got, I'm gonna sound like an old fart now. I'm gonna sound like an old fart. Everybody,
Experienced.
uh, everybody wants the shortcut now. They
Yeah.
want to do it the easiest way. They want to, the TikTok way or whatever. They want to read the
Mhm.
headline but not the story. And so we have democratized mediocrity. You know, everybody can
Mm.
become famous or do something because it's all accessible to people, but they very, very few have the discipline to become excellent at it. And that's a shame. I you can garner all the benefits of fame and celebrity and all the other stuff by not being that great.
Yeah. That we're talking about people, if you talk about recipes, no, I agree. Oh, you know what? It takes me us, I mean, sometimes just give up to find a good movie, stream a good movie or show. It's just, I don't know, maybe it's just getting older, but it seems what you just said, the mediocrity, it's just declining. It's to find something is and then to actually find it and really feel it,
Yeah,
where you have an unpredictable plot. And I love the sort of the relationships underneath all that, and the development of the character. Then that, if it hits, it hits. But a lot of the stuff, it's like, oh gosh, just fillers. What
it,
happened?
it's programmed.
Yeah.
It's content as opposed to art, and
Mm.
and it's like, okay, how can we get to the largest audience? And so, and unfortunately now there are programs going, give me a scenario by which millions and millions of people are going to want to watch this, as opposed to the old David Lean philosophy of, I'm going to make a movie that I want to see, and hopefully enough other people want to see it too.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's, as we're talking, it down on me, the sort of the common denominator of just slowing it down.
Yeah.
It's with everything. I was just curious, where do you find a space in your mind for all of that stuff? It's how do you organize it? Here you're dusting something off from your college years. You decide, oh, I'm going to write another book. Here I'm involved in this project. You're working on another movie, and another movie is. Do you find yourself? Does it energize you to sort of start many things at once, and do you actually finish it? Can you focus on just one at a time? I mean, how do you think about these things and making them happen?
I can absolutely compartmentalize, uh,
Wow.
but it takes the focus on what's in front of you. I've
Mhm.
often said, yeah, yes, uh, uh, I filmed yesterday. I'm going to film next week. I haven't even received the script, but when I receive the script, I used to say I'm going to eat what's in front of me, and so everything else goes away, and I focus on that because I have to complete that particular task. Uh, I haven't written on the book in 4 or 5 days because I've been traveling, but I jot notes down in a notebook that I carry around with me. And so when I sit down to do that, that's what I'm going to do. Um, my daughter Indigo, she's 18, but she's on the spectrum, and she is brilliant. She has so many ideas. She is an amazing illustrator. She's an amazing writer. What she lacks is what you were saying, that completion gene. She starts so many things but doesn't complete them. And at this point in my tutelage of her, I hope I'm like, honey, you got all these great ideas. You got to finish one of them. You've got to complete something. Doesn't even, I completed the book I'm working on now back in college, but I knew it wasn't good enough. It actually, the fun story. I wrote a movie called Ambition, where I played a writer, and in that movie, he burns a lot of the rejection letters he got for a book that he had turned in. I'm actually burning copies of the rejection letters I got for this book. You know, it was cathartic. But I always knew that the book at heart was very good. It just needed to be executed better. And so here I am 40 years later, and it's one of my wife's. One of the first things she read from me, and she loved it. And so, once again, she's a motivator. She's somebody that is my sounding board and my touchstone. And when she says you need to finish this, I listen to her. So, but it's very much about having a lot of plates in the air and juggling them all at once, um, because in this landscape today, you don't know which one's going to happen. You know, uh,
Yeah.
you brought up the Ambulance Chaser, this legal thriller that I'm attached to direct. We're still trying to raise the money for it, but it's uh, is one that is well worth it. Whenever the opportunity comes up, I go to the fundraisers. Whenever I there are actors that I've talked to about it, that when it becomes real, I would love to have them in it, and they're because fortunately, because of our histories, they're willing to entertain those thoughts. So uh, it like I said, it's literally just focusing on the task in hand and giving it my all in that moment. And it's also something that we're trying to teach our daughters, like being present. It's like here I am talking to you, so I'm present with you. Yeah, and I'll be present doing something else later. But right now, be in the here and now and focus on that.
And that is such a great fit for this podcast because it's people go, well, how do you prepare for these interviews? I don't, because it is an open-ended sort of a conversation, and whatever comes, and I love to listen. And if you have someone like yourself who's willing to share and is very transparent, um it just makes it flow seamlessly. Now I do have to ask, though, that's one thing that sort of that was out there. I was curious. Are you a competitive poker player? Is that true?
I am. And speaking of, what can I do and what can I not do? I'm trying to figure out right now whether or not I can make it to the World Series this year. I played 2 years ago in the seniors event and I cashed. I played in the main event in 2012 and went deep and cashed. So I do love it. And once
Wow.
again, it goes to that philosophy of when I'm sitting at the poker table playing cards, I at least get to focus on that right there. That's all I'm doing. All of the other problems or worries or plans, they all kind of go to the wayside, and for 8-10 hours I can sit there and play cards.
That's so Are you are you well, I don't think I'm just curious because I don't know. I mean, I'm familiar with it. I don't know how to play poker. I played many different card games, but would you say you're genuinely good? Are you lucky? What goes into it? Is it a little bit of both?
It's a lot of both. I mean, you kind of got to be good. You can't just depend on luck all the time. Annie Duke said the most wonderful thing. She said, when she plays poker, it's not gambling. Because
Mm.
there's strategy. I mean, there's not only the mathematics of it, and calculating your outs and figuring out, what are the likelihoods, but it's reading, it's reading your opponent. Are they bluffing? How good is their hand? How confident are they? And all of that goes into it, and all of it goes into a very sort of finite, 45 seconds of judging what you should be doing.
Is there a point in your career that surprised you the most? Something that you never saw coming?
Uh, I mean, there are certain jobs, I mean, Broadway was huge. That came out of the blue.
Mm.
But although it didn't really, because I had felt the need to get back on stage, and so I did a beautiful retranslation of The Good Person is Szechuan down at the La Jolla Playhouse, that the Pulitzer Prize winning everything Tony Kushner did, and I had a chance to work with him. And by getting back on stage, that literally led to Jay Binder, the casting director, seeing me on there and going, "Oh, he's a theater guy," and them casting me in The King and I for Broadway. So I mean, not everything totally comes out of the blue. There's usually a breadcrumb trail, that takes you back to the genesis of an idea. La Bamba came out of the blue, and that just shot me out of a cannon. I became famous literally overnight, and the fact that thank goodness my next three films were hits as well is probably why I'm still here today. Um, but I think on the other side of that, about 7 8 years after La Bamba, I'd become offer only, and all of a sudden, my agent was playing up, the fact that I was a star, and I was going to the movies and going, well, why didn't I see that script? Why didn't I see that role? Why wasn't I up for that? And the realization that you can't rest on your laurels. All of a sudden I realized, okay, I'm in my ivory tower and I need to get back down to the street and get competitive. Otherwise, these opportunities are passing me by. And so that's what I did. And, I auditioned for, Courage Under Fire. And that's one of the highlights of my career. Denzel Washington, Meg Ryan, an unknown Matt Damon, plus an all-star cast. And it's because, I had to tell my agent, because listen, I'm going to swallow my pride. I'm going to go in and fight for this because this is a great script. And it was a big lesson for me. It was a big lesson for me to never take it for granted again. That it wasn't just going to come to you, and especially in today's market. When about 10 years ago, maybe more like 15, they would say, "Lou, you're on the short list," and it's like, "Hey, great! Well, I'm on the short list with like Kiefer and Forrest Whitaker and all these other people." And it's like, that's not a short list. Throw a stick and we can all do the job.
Sure.
And sometimes the meeting, getting in the room, is the only thing that's going to make the difference. And so I've learned, to not sit back and wait for it to come to me.
Lou, you know what I really stuck with me. You kind of mentioned it, and then you went on talking about other stuff, but you mentioned gratitude. It comes through. It definitely comes through. That's something that's really important to you.
It is, and it's something that I will never forget. It's almost like I want to put it, on the door of the trailer whenever you're doing a job. I've done some really, really great television shows, Longmire, Prodigal Son, even go back to Wolf Lake, some stuff that I thought, Stargate Universe, wonderful cast, wonderful opportunities. There were many, many times when I would see a young actor who was, not as grateful for the work as they should have
Mm.
been, and that actualizes itself in not knowing their lines, or not being on time, or not being present, or asking questions like, when are we going to be done? And it's like, you do realize there's a few hundred people in line behind you that would like this job, you know And it's so funny because actors will work so hard and take all the classes and go to the gym and all this, and then when they get the gig they treat it like a hobby. It's like this was the destination, man. Have some respect for it.
Yeah, that actually leads me to, kind of on one of the final notes is what your advice to incoming actors. I mean, you've given really plenty, but
Oh,
this one. Yeah, what would it be if you were to sort of sum it up? Somebody who's trying to break through, get into the industry
uh,
today.
a lot of people, they tell me I'm an aspiring actor. I said, no, you're not. You're already an actor. You're just waiting to get paid. Okay. So, adopt that mindset. You already are an actor. You're just looking to get better and you're looking to get jobs. And so you have to treat it, like a job. Take the classes, get into a theater group, surround yourself with other, artists, because with that mindset, you will get better and you will, apply yourself to it. It's not for the weak-hearted and it's not for hobbyists. It will eat you up. I don't care how good looking you are right now. It doesn't matter. There are a lot of you, a lot of prom queens and football quarterbacks getting off the bus. Okay. So it's the talent that's going to set you apart, and to do that, you need to hone it. I've had a lot of people ask me, oh God, why are the Brits so good? It's like, because they studied. They do theater. They'll play the spirit carrier in one and then play the lead in another. They have respect for the genre, and they're not just trying to become stars. If you do the work, you will become a star, and or at least, at the very least, a working actor. So it is about approaching it with clear eyes and a commitment and a discipline to do what it takes. And that's all the things beyond just the acting. Audition classes, your headshots, finding a good agent. Keeping your eye on what's available to you. And the beauty of it is, and I've had this conversation quite a bit because I've been doing the film festivals. We shot my upcoming movie Gangland in Oklahoma, and it hired local people. We shot Longmire in Santa Fe, hired local people. The Dallas film industry where I started, there are many, many more opportunities now. So not everybody has to get on the bus to LA. Look at the opportunities you have where you are, build a resume, build a reel, build some experience, and then if you feel like you have to go tackle the giant, then do it. But take it one step at a time.
What a great advice. This is not just chase pie in the sky. There's a business aspect of it. You got to do the reps,
Yeah.
asking for help, connecting with the right people.
Yep.
I mean, there are no shortcuts. And the discipline that you have, the self-discipline, just shines through. And to me, it's like anything worthwhile, takes discipline and hard work. It's almost, I believe that having a process is better than having a goal, at least system. I'm sorry, not a process, but a system.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do the one thing that's in front of you, and then do the next thing. You don't ask about your feelings, how you feel. You just do it. You
Yeah.
just get it done.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. So on a final note, Lou, I'd love for our viewers and listeners, can you tell us what you have, everything that you have coming up so they can follow it?
Absolutely. Well, first, I have Gangland, which will be on video on demand and in select theaters starting in July. It'll be a platform release, so keep your eyes open. It might show up in a theater near you. Otherwise, it will be nationwide video on demand on July 10th. Look it up. 100% on Rotten Tomatoes right now. All of our reviews have been stellar. I'm quite proud of it. The Chair Company that I'm in with Tim Robinson had its first season on HBO Max, and that's still streaming. We'll start shooting the second season in August, and I am currently filming a miniseries called Count My Lies with Shailene Woodley, Lindsay Lohan, Kit Harington, Catherine Lanassa. It's based on a novel. It is pretty fantastic. And just the other day, a movie where I play the bad guy, kind of a Yellowstone kind of a show called Casa Grande, is also streaming. So yeah, there's there. Oh, and I'm also a voice on Stranger Things: Tales from '85, the animated version. So that's streaming right now as well.
Wow.
Yay!
You're ageless, man. This is
Well,
this is
keeping me, thank goodness.
I don't know what you do with yourself if everything got quiet and you had just you didn't have all this. And no, this is really great. You're definitely putting your mind to work, inspiring so many people along the way. I'm just kind of like processing everything that you said, and I know we could continue on, and this was such a great conversation. And I mean, obviously you are. I mean, you're still chasing the art, not the fame. I mean, it came through very much, and thank you so much for being so generous with your time and stories today.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you for this platform. That's, like you said, getting beyond everything else, and then trying to get to the meat of the matter. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's worth it. So to our viewers and listeners, don't forget to hit the subscribe on our YouTube channel, Beyond the Bar Podcast. Follow us on social media channels, and make sure to keep up with Lou's projects. He has so much going on. We are going to post it in the link below. And to everybody listening, as I like to say, stay curious and inspired.